Thank you, Chairman. Secretary Adeyemo, as Congress intended, the Inflation Reduction Act incentives are dramatically accelerating the ongoing clean energy industrial revolution, I'll call it, and really supercharging manufacturing in a way that we haven't seen in 60 years. You shouldn't take my word for that, but I would ask unanimous consent to put a couple of articles in the record today, one from Forbes that says in 2023, and this is the headline, the United States started building again, thanks to Biden's Inflation Reduction Act. And another that from Axios, where the headline is, a manufacturing investment super cycle is starting. We've seen this in New Mexico with 3 different factory announcements in solar, in wind, in electric vehicle supply chains. And so we've already seen hundreds of thousands of jobs created in making batteries, solar panels, heat pumps, and other clean energy technologies here in the United States. So how would you characterize the manufacturing investment landscape both before and after the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act?
Well, Senator, thank you for the question. Thank you for your leadership with regard to the Inflation Reduction Act. And I think that you've done a good job of characterizing the sea change that we've seen in America due to what I'd say are the 3 historic pieces of legislation that Congress has passed: the CHIPS and Science Act, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, and most importantly, the Inflation Reduction Act. And what it's done is that it has led to investment in America that is unlocking a manufacturing boom that spreads throughout the country, not only in your state, but throughout the country in a way that is, in lots of ways, giving people access to jobs that are well-paying jobs to build the economy of the future. And not just an economy that's going to matter here in America, but will allow America to be a leader around the world. Because ultimately, what we've learned over the last few years is the importance of the supply chains. And the investments we're making in building a supply chain that goes through America will both supply key goods and clean energy to America, improving our energy security, but it'll also mean that America is at the center of the alternative supply chain to China that our allies and partners can rely on. These investments will unlock our ability to make sure that America's economy doesn't just grow next year, but over the next decades, and that is because of the passage of legislation like the Inflation Reduction Act.
So when I was growing up, my mother worked in auto manufacturing. She worked at a wheel manufacturing plant. And I saw for years how policies and lack of policies really created enormous disinvestment in the United States. Auto manufacturing declined. And now we're seeing this incredible resurgence. The numbers are absolutely remarkable. The amount of investment here in the United States is remarkable. When you just look at the state of New Mexico, I can think of a 1,500-person announcement of a new solar manufacturing plant that's coming, a wind tower manufacturing plant that's getting up off the ground that's roughly 300 jobs, roughly the same size jobs at an auto manufacturing supplier for EVs. What happens to those factories, and more importantly, the people who are going to work in those factories, if we do what House Republicans have suggested and we repeal the Inflation Reduction Act?
So, Senator, what happens is those jobs go away. America's manufacturing boom goes away. The investments that are being made in America go away if we were to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act. Not only does that happen, but it sets us back in not only meeting our climate goals, but improving our energy security. One of the most important things that was done in the Inflation Reduction Act was the passage of the prevailing wage and apprenticeship provision, which means that not only are we seeing a manufacturing boom in America, but the people who are helping to build those manufacturing plants are being paid a living wage because of the legislation that you've passed. So it is not only creating new jobs, it's creating well-paying jobs all over the country, which are going to be critical to making sure that Americans and communities all over the country have the ability to build opportunities for their family. And if you were to repeal the Inflation Reduction Act, it would have a significant impact on those communities, on those individuals, and on our long-term economic success.
Secretary Turk, so if those jobs go away, does that make us more or less competitive with China?
Absolutely less competitive. We're competing, and I would say we're winning. I know in meetings I have with international counterparts, they're incredibly jealous
Yeah.
of the tools we have in the tool belt, the private sector investment in particular. We're not doing industrial strategy like other countries. We're doing it in a uniquely U.S. way with entrepreneurs and companies leading the way. What we're able to do with these tools that you've given us, the tax tools, the grant tools, the loan tools, is accelerate that and have this all across our country in a very intentional way.
Mr. Chairman, I like winning. Let's do more.
Let me just say